Hi, Himeutsuki here. So basically, my VOD for the second, or shall I say, part 2 of session 0 that I did for my solo Fabula Ultima campaign, the file got corrupted. Yeah, and so I had some of it. You could see where I created the first 2 characters, and then there was nothing else. Nothing about the other 2 characters, and the part where I played through the first 2 scenes, nothing. Nothing at all. And the footage that I did have was on my old PC back before I upgraded to the PC that I use now, which is a lot better. And so there were all these encoding issues, so it was really laggy, and it really kind of looked like a terrible PowerPoint presentation because it would freeze frame for 10-15 minutes at a time. It was just awful. And so I thought, rather than try to salvage that awful footage ahead of my restart, or not restart, but just continuation of this campaign, I thought I would just throw together a little video introducing the characters and just sort of talking about the process as best as I remember it, since this was from May. But I'll do the best that I can. And I thought, since the original stream VOD ended up looking so much like a PowerPoint, that it would be fun if I did a little presentation. So I'm going to introduce the characters by using this little Google Slides presentation that I made. Yeah! So anyway, this is sort of a recap of the second part of session 0 of my solo Fabula Ultima campaign by me, Himeutsuki. So the name of this campaign is Kingdoms of Myst, because there are kingdoms, multiple kingdoms in these floating islands of Myst. Originally, when we rolled the name, it was Myst with an I, but then I think somebody in my chat was like, try Myst with a Y, and it instantly looks so much cooler, doesn't it? But yeah, so this is an introduction to the characters that make up the main party, a recap of their creation, as the original VOD file has sadly been corrupted and is unusable. But yeah, I'll run through the characters and then through the 2 scenes that I've done so far. Okay, so some credits. First, all of the character chibi art that you're going to see is by Phil VZ. Hopefully I said that correctly. I will link to this in the description below so you can seek out their art. They are an amazing artist. I love all of the chibis they did of my characters, really brought them to life. The character personality oracles I used are from Ballads of Dawn, which is the solo TTRPG that I've been developing and writing. I really like the oracle tables I used for my personality table, so a lot of times I'll just roll 3 times on that and sort of use that to jumpstart my character, and I believe that's what I used for these characters as well, even though I no longer have any record of what I rolled. But this tends to be my go-to, shameless plug for myself here. Ballads of Dawn is still in development, but you can get an early access version of the game that has about half of the seasonal tables. So if you're interested, I'll have that linked below as well. The game, obviously, is Fabula Ultima. Well, I keep accidentally typing Fabula Ultimata, so I wanted to make sure I didn't do that, but I didn't. Yippee. I mostly just use the core rules, plus the natural fantasy and high fantasy atlases. I don't anticipate using any of techno fantasy because it's kind of outside the realm of the setting of Kingdoms of Myst, but I won't completely rule it out because you never know. The solo rules for the character interactions that I use in this game are sort of a mix, my own hack. I use Cesar Kapokli's O, as well as Keeping Contact by Dr. Gerald Ravenpie. I'll get into that a little bit more when I get to the scene, but you'll see the tables from both O and Keeping Contact when I run my session as well. I think that both of those things just help me introduce a more random nature to how the characters interact, rather than all the scenes just being like straight up creative writing, you know? So you'll see that I'll get into it a little bit more once we get there. But yeah, so I did want to give credits for kind of my system and all of this stuff. Okay, So moving on, we are introducing the main party cast of characters. So there are 4 characters that make up the main party of this game. And so even though I'm playing solo, I did create a party, and then I'm using those rules, those systems that I talked about on the previous slide to sort of help me roleplay as the other characters when need be, right? So we're gonna go in this order from 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll talk about each of the characters in turn and what they're like and all of that fun stuff. So first up, we have Indigo, and in Fabula Ultima, you can come up with the character's sort of background information, and they actually even have some tables that you can use to help you with that, which is really great. I feel like that's very solo friendly, even though this is for a group. And so I decided to roll for my characters on all of those because I thought the identity would be really fun if it was a little more cohesive in the sense that they all come from Fabula Ultima. So this troubled and fearful artist, that part comes straight from Fabula Ultima, and then mired in past sentiments. So the result I actually got from the identity table was actually from the past, but I didn't want Indigo to literally be a time traveler, so I interpreted that as mired in past sentiments, like he's kind of stuck in the past in that sense. So his classes are Symbolist and Arcanist, and the theme of his plot and character really is doubt. So Indigo's family was originally from Acheron, but they immigrated up to Edessa after Indigo began to see strange visions and dreams as a child. Indigo's parents thought that his condition would improve if he was surrounded by nature. It did seem to help somewhat, but Indigo also began to channel what he saw into his art instead. So he is an artist, as you can see, since he has the little paintbrush here, and that's where the Symbolist part comes into play. Indigo is largely self-taught, though he did have an uncle who taught him art when he still lived in Acheron. So they're not in Acheron anymore, they're in the little town of, well, I shouldn't say town, they're in the little dual islands of Edessa. Though able to use magic, Indigo considers himself an artist first and foremost. So he's a magic artist, really, but he considers himself more of an artist than a magician, really. His symbols and art seem abstract, but they are a direct representation of what he sees in his dreams and nightmares. So even though they look strange and abstract, it is actually pretty close to what he sees in his head. He longs to know the truth of what he sees and why he has been shown these visions. And so he's had them, and they almost seem a little prophetic in a way, but we'll learn more about that as the story goes on, I'm sure. But yeah, so this is Indigo. He's troubled, a little fearful, a little gloomy, this kind of character. Yeah, so I remember rolling on the personality table for him, and that's where I got sort of like pessimistic and gloomy, and that's the kind of character he is. So he's definitely the Debbie Downer of the group, you know what I mean? A little bit anyways. Okay, so next up we have Orion, and that's how this is pronounced. It's Orion. So Orion is a free-spirited and reckless spell fencer without a homeland. Their classes are Elementalist, Spiritist, and Weapon Master. Their theme is hope. You can see that they have this long hair. I bet you can't guess what element is their primary element, but yeah, the spell fencer, so sort of a magic swordsman. All right, so their family is used to traveling around a lot, though they have settled in central Edessa for some time now, which is where the story begins, is in central Edessa. Orion overheard their parents talking one night about their homeland, Nethys. This confused them, as it's common knowledge that Nethys is inhabited only by monsters and vengeful spirits. Orion tried to confront their parents about this, but was unable to learn any more details. Their parents were very hesitant to talk about their time at Nethys, and Orion certainly doesn't have any memories of being in Nethys. So though Orion has integrated well with their friends in Edessan culture over the years, they still long to find their own homeland, if such a place exists, and hone their magical sword skills further. Orion is trained by their father, who has enough combat knowledge that it hints at his being a former knight of some sort, but of course mums the word on that as well. It's very mysterious. Orion's goal is to be equally skilled at the sword and magic. So again, they are a magic swordsman or a spell fencer, but they don't want to, kind of similar to how Indigo balances art with magic, Orion wants to balance swordsmanship with magic. If it wasn't obvious, Orion is sort of gender ambiguous. They kind of use they, them pronouns. I think if you were to ask them their gender, they would just sort of stare at you like, what do you want? Why are you asking me that? So, but yeah, they're very complicated. I rolled a lot of very conflicting adjectives for them. So you see free, spirited, reckless, but then as you can see in the scene, they come off as being a lot more stoic as well. So they're sort of reckless but stoic, calm but free spirited, and impulsive is kind of, I don't know, this character is a little all over the place. So this is a character that I hope as we play, or as I play through the story more, hopefully their character solidifies. But it does help that the initial scenes are sort of flashbacks of their childhood, and so hopefully that helps set the stage for what kind of character Orion is as well. Okay. Next we have Selene, a charming lass who acts like she's from the moon. So again, when I was rolling on her identity, for the detail, I got from the moon, but again, I didn't want to literally have her be from the moon, and so I decided to make her one of those Delulu is the Solulu kind of characters instead. So she acts like she's from the moon. She believes she's from the moon. She's not. Spoilers. Okay, so Selene's classes are Fury, Gourmet, and Guardian. So Selene is a sweet and charming girl who is an only child. Raised with much love from her parents, she was always told how special she is and that her beauty means that she's been blessed by the moon. Well, Selene took that and ran with it. Never mind that her family has lived in Edessa for generations, Selene will swear up and down that she is from the moon. She likes to act as if she is a delicate flower because, you know, if you're a moon princess, you have to be delicate and soft. But her strength and force of spirit belie her true nature. However, she has fooled even herself with her delusions and will not be dissuaded from her beliefs, and so she has very strong confirmation bias, so even if she's just acted in a way that does not seem very delicate or weak whatsoever, she will sort of justify it somehow. So it's not that she's trying to lie to people, like she truly believes that she is this delicate princess from the moon, basically, even though she's this very strong, like, paladin kind of character, you know, she's actually quite powerful, but she doesn't view herself that way. Selene is greatly interested in perfecting her cooking craft and seeks to be the best pastry chef in the land, but her talents seem to lie more in stir-fry and hitting enemies with her frying pan. Of course, she wants to be a pastry chef because that seems delicate, you know, and sweet. Let's make sweets. But, well, her shield is a wok, and she carries this large frying pan and whacks things with it, so, you know, as I said, Delulu is the Sululu, but yes, this is Selene. She's our tank, shall we say. Okay, and then the final character in the group is Cale, a young and famous floralist from an ancient bloodline. That's word for word from the identity tables. So Cale's classes are floralist and wayfarer, and his theme is belonging. Oh, did I talk about Selene's theme? Selene's theme is ambition. Orion's theme is hope. I don't remember if I talked about those, but yeah, those are their character and plot themes. Really important. It feels very JRPG. So we have doubt, hope, ambition. She wants to be the very best that no one ever was. And then Cale is belonging. So though his ancestors hailed from Oscara, Cale's family has lived in central Edessa for generations, just like Selene's. They never do forget their noble roots, however, and Cale has been raised to take pride in being Oscaran. Cale has a deep love of plants, studying under famous herbalists and being known as something of a child prodigy, as Cale discovered his first magiseed when he was just 7 years old. Though he didn't know what it was at the time, the beautiful seed captivated him, and Cale knew then that he wanted to study magiseeds forevermore. For a time, Cale was even considering going to Ildefort to study with the reclusive mages there, but ultimately he decided against leaving his friends and family behind. If you remember from the world-building stream, or if you watch the VOD, Ildefort is pretty much closed off from the rest of the world, and so if he had gone to Ildefort, he likely would have very rarely seen his friends and family again, and as you can see, since his theme is belonging, he just decided that it wasn't worth it to him. His powers tend to be somewhat misunderstood, and he deeply craves acceptance and love from those around him. And the nature of that misunderstanding, I think you will see as the story goes on. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him from being the child prodigy and being from a noble bloodline and all that. But and he seems very chipper and happy-go-lucky, but I think he's got a bit of a kind of a sad side to him. So I think so. Cale and Indigo are close. I mean, all four of them share childhood memories, but they're all kind of friends with each other in different ways, and you'll see in the initial scenes how they all got to know each other and met for the most part. But I think that the interesting thing here is that Cale seems very bright and chipper, but is kind of secretly sad. Indigo seems really gloomy on the outside, but he's actually very strong in his own way. And then you have the more stoic, reckless person. I know stoic and reckless doesn't sound like it goes together, but that's the kind of character Orion is. And then you have Selene, who's like charming and sweet, but actually, looks like a cinnamon roll, can kill you, is a cinnamon roll. Looks like a cinnamon roll, is a cinnamon roll. Looks like they could kill you, is a cinnamon roll. Looks like they could kill you, would kill you. I didn't mean for it to end up this way, but that's group dynamics for you right there, Okay, so with that, I do want to now switch over to the game, in the sense that I played through these scenes originally in my second part of session 0. After I created the characters, I really wanted to dive in and get a sense of them, and so I did these two kind of short scenes as part of the prologue, but I'm going to go through them with you so you can kind of know what happened before we pick up in the next session, session 1. So session 1 will pick up right where these two scenes left off, and so let's go ahead and get to that. Okay. So the way that I am playing this game is there are 4 characters, but I don't consider any of the 4 to be the main character. They're a group. And so the way that I'm doing this is with each scene, I'm going to pick one of the characters to be the POV character, and that'll be in parentheses you can see here. So in scene 0, which is this sort of prologue, Selene was the POV character. And so then all of the roles that I do are from Selene's point of view. So I'm playing through this as if I'm DMing, where there's just a single player and the single player is Selene. And then anytime Selene has to interact with one of the other characters, that's where my oracles come in, where I'm using either O or keeping contact in order to sort of dictate how the other characters react. Now, I only do that when there's an element of chance. If it's really obvious how one of the characters will react, I'll just go with it. So you'll see, because you can see where all the checks come up. They don't come up all the time for that reason, but I think where there's an element of uncertainty and chance, I do like to roll because it keeps the story more interesting and keeps the tension up. So you'll see that. Okay, so the 4 protagonists live in Breezeburg, a sleepy little hamlet in the central island of Edessa to the east. It's located on the highest point of the island so that the windmills can catch the strong breezes that draft up from Acheron. This is a story of their childhood, when they were around 10 years of age or so. In the main story, by the way, they're in their 20s at the beginning, like early-ish 20s. One afternoon, Selene is playing by herself in the yard when she hears the familiar hum of an incoming airship. She goes to fetch Orion, her taciturn new neighbor close to her in age, to come along to see who's on the airship. Breezeburg doesn't get many visitors. So this was where I did an oracle to see if Orion would agree to go or not. So I chose unlikely as a percentage, but I rolled an 80, so we'll say that was a yes. Though Orion often trains with her father and refuses Selene's invitations to play, on this particular day, Orion agrees to go. The two of them go and find the mayor of Breezeburg welcoming a group of important-looking guests who've disembarked. The mayor offers to guide them and show them the windmills. Why would anyone want to look at the windmills? Maybe they don't have windmills where they come from. So we did an insight check. So when I first did these 2 scenes, this was my first time playing Fabula Ultima, so I didn't understand that even if I'm only rolling for, even if I am meaning to only check one of the stats, I was meant to double it. Like, this should be insight plus insight, so I'd be rolling 2 dice. I didn't know that, and so I just kind of halved the difficulty levels, so it's okay. Moving forward, I will play the game properly. I just didn't know at the time. So anyway, so I rolled an insight check for Selene, and she succeeded. Selene notices that the visitors are wearing clothes with lots of glowing jewels on them, which means they're most likely from Acheron. They've got so much cool stuff in Acheron. Why would they need to see spinning wheel thingies anyway? Quiet, I can't hear what they're saying. Oh. The two of them creep closer, knowing they'll get in trouble for eavesdropping, and accidentally bump into Cale and Indigo, who were doing the same thing. Hey! Why are you being loud when you're the one who bumped into us? Now, be nice, Indy. They're getting further away. Ugh. The children rather indiscreetly follow the group of adults, not knowing that they've long since been sighted. The mayor shakes his head with a wry smile, but lets them be. The group of adults heads up to the top of High Hill Road, where the largest windmill gently spins in the breeze. Come to think of it, what is this big one used for? Well, I heard windmills are used to make flour. They're also used to keep the fields watered. Oh, I didn't know that. You're so smart. You're Cale, right? I've seen you around town before. Yeah, I'm Cale, and this is my friend Indigo. Hi. Not much of a talker, is he? Not really, but I talk enough for both of us. I know what that's like. Orion doesn't talk much either. The children watch for a while, but quickly get bored listening to the mayor explain the various aspects of the windmill. So we did another insight check here. I rolled a 1, so Selene super failed that one. The scientific terms and such boggle Selene's mind, and she soon stops listening. Just as she's about to suggest leaving, she sees the mayor shake hands with the tallest Acheronese man. They seem to have made an agreement of some kind. But for what? Let's race to the bottom of the hill. But I'm such a delicate young lady, I'll probably lose. You don't really think that, do you? What do you mean? Never mind. Cale excitedly agrees to race. Despite her delicate constitution, Selene easily wins the race, with Cale just behind her and the reluctant Indigo and Orion trailing behind. The four of them walk around Breezeburg together, getting acquainted with each other. The meeting between the mayor and the group of Acheronese travelers is soon erased from their minds. Dun dun dun. So that's the prologue. It kind of sets the scene a little bit, and it's when the four of them met. So, at this point in the story, Orion's family had just moved to Edessa, whereas Orion and Cale and Indigo have been there for a long time. Just Selene didn't have much of a chance to get to know them until now. And so this is kind of basically how the four of them got together and met. Okay, so then from here we go into scene 1. So here we changed POVs to Indigo, and so this is the Whispering Manor. I need to say that both the Whispering Manor and Breezeburg, I believe, come from the Natural Fantasy Atlas. Like, I don't believe I came up with them. I think both of them are from the Natural Fantasy Atlas. I could be wrong. It's been a minute. I'll have to look for them before I do my session. But yeah, so these parts I didn't come up with. I did all the world building for the places, but some of these, especially if there's already monsters and stat blocks, I like being able to pull from the book. So I'll talk about, as these come up. When I did this stream, I said where it came from. I was like, oh, cool. I like this. Let's do this from, I believe, the Natural Fantasy book. But there'll be times where I'm coming up with stuff on the fly. I just wanted to use this for now. Okay, so anyway, so this is part 1. So this did not finish in this session. So after this scene is exactly where we will pick up in session 1. So this is the Whispering Manor from Indigo's POV. The Whispering Manor belongs to Breezeburg's only noble family, the Terran Winds, whom even the mayor has to defer to. And this is putting aside the fact that Cale's family is also technically noble. That's because they're not originally from here, they're from Oscara, so it's a little different. They're noble, but from like a different country. It's a 3-story mansion with strangely sloped roofs and a balcony so large that it's visible from anywhere in Breezeburg. Atop the building is a great windmill, but its blades never move despite the strong winds. It was only when Selene pointed it out that Indigo noticed that he'd been painting the manor a lot recently. Even your sketchbook is filled with pictures of the manor. Huh. I hadn't noticed. The roofs give it away. When he thinks on it, he realizes that he's been seeing the place even in his dreams. Did an insight check here was unfortunately a failure. What this could mean, however, Indigo doesn't understand. When Selene asks if he's ever been to the manor, he shakes his head. Its sole inhabitant, Lady Demetria Terranwind, is known for being rather moody. It can't hurt to take a look. It might inspire your art at the very least. For being such a delicate lady, you sure do like to poke your nose into places it doesn't belong. Well, I never. That's just rude. Selene stomps off in a huff after slapping Indigo on the shoulder, just a little too strongly. Indigo reminds himself not to cross his friend too much. She's got the strongest arm in town aside from the blacksmith. Still, Selene's words tug at Indigo's heartstrings. It's not like Lady Demetria will have me beheaded just for taking a look. Right? He frets about it, but ultimately gives in and decides to go have a look at the place. He's only ever seen the balcony from afar. As he passes through town, he runs into Orion, who seems to have just finished a training session. They're always swinging a sword around, especially these days. Here I did a mood check from keeping contact, and I did +1 attitude because they're like friends but not super close friends, and so rolled a 2 there and got bold. Orion raises an eyebrow when they see Indigo heading their way. They don't speak, but Indigo can tell that there's a question on their face. I'm going to have a closer look at the Whispering Manor. Why? I have to see it up close if I want to paint a better picture of it. Orion's brow furrows in confusion, or perhaps incredulity. Lady Demetria won't like it. I won't have to worry about it unless I get caught, which I don't plan on. Huh, you've got more guts than I thought. Still, want me to come with? Sure, if you don't mind. There's rumors that the place is haunted, hence its moniker. Having company won't hurt. And then kind of did an insight check. Oh, I just realized this is an insight check for Orion. No, Orion has no idea why Indigo's doing this. So this is from Orion's point of view, trying to see if they have some insight into Indigo's reasoning. And they have none. They're just coming along for funsies, I guess. The sun is just starting to set when the two arrive at the manor. Breezeburg isn't particularly large, but the buildings are somewhat spread out, allowing for fields of grain and other produce for the townspeople to tend to. There's a light in the window on the second floor. Lady Demetria... I missed a little thingy here. It's supposed to be italicized. Lady Demetria is doing something inside, perhaps. Come to think of it, do you know when Lady Demetria last left the manor? Indigo asks absently. Orion rewards him with an incredulous eyebrow raise, as if to say, do you really think I pay attention to that sort of thing? Indigo shakes his head with a low chuckle. Never mind. At least he knows it was long enough ago that he doesn't remember. I heard she hasn't left the manor at all since her father passed away a few years back, Orion finally says as the two of them stop walking. They're standing on the precipice of the place. One more step and it could be seen as intrusion, but right now they're still in a safe zone. This is the closest Indigo has ever gotten to the manor, and he's sure it's the same for Orion. What are you two doing over here? A high, peevish-sounding voice rings out from behind them. It's Selene, with Cale at her side. I can't believe you came here without me after accusing me of poking my nose into things. Ugh. Now, you'll make Indigo feel shy if you bring that up. You two weren't about to leave us out of this little adventure, were you? I'm just having a look. He feels strangely defensive about the whole thing. Well, you've had a look now. Are you satisfied? Before he can say anything else, the sound of a strange, long cry emanates from the manor. It sounds like someone suffering. Did you all hear that? He asks. But when he turns his head, Indigo can see from their faces that they did. Everyone is tense, and even Selene has a serious look on her face. He doesn't have to say anything, but as Indigo scans each of his friends' faces, he knows that they want to check things out as much as he does. So here we did an insight and will check. Kind of did that as like a stealth roll, like a hard, or I guess DL10 is average, but no, so that's a fail. I rolled double ones. Unfortunately, as they approach the manor, Indigo's eyes are glued to the light in the window, and he accidentally steps on Selene's foot. Selene lets out a shriek. The window rolls open, and an angry-looking, middle-aged woman leans out. Get away from here! What are you youngsters doing? Feeling foolish, Indigo cups his hand around his mouth to yell up to her. Apologies, Lady Demetria. We just heard a strange noise. Is everything all right? And then I had Lady Demetria roll. I just kind of, as an NPC, I just kind of gave her D10s on everything. She rolled really high. So, unfortunately, she saw through their little lie. Don't you lie to me! I saw you approaching earlier! Cale pulls the other three closer into a huddle. I don't think she's going to be happy if we get any closer. But that cry we heard... We'll have to sneak in after dark. What? That's not very ladylike. But aren't you from the moon? You should do better in the moonlight, don't you think? Well, that's true. After all these years, and here's an insight check that he passed, after all these years, it's still a surprise to Indigo just how much Selene actually believes that she's from the moon. Still, he doesn't want to just leave whoever that was. There's rumors about the manor and about why Lady Demetria refuses to leave. Could grief over losing her father really be enough to keep her from setting foot outside the place? And what if that strange cry? Let's return after dark then. Midnight sound good? Sure. I can't believe you're actually agreeing to this, Indy. Well, even Indigo wouldn't just leave someone in distress. That feels like a backhanded compliment, but Indigo decides not to comment on it. Selene calls out to the window, We're sorry, Lady Demetria. We'll leave now so as not to disturb you. The four of them start walking back down the hill, but Indigo can still feel Lady Demetria's searing gaze on them even long after they've returned to the center of Breezeburg. And that is the end of that scene. And yeah, so that is all I had written so far. I put the campaign on a pause because I just knew that I would be doing this campaign for a long time, and so I wanted to wait and get some art, and so I commissioned art of the characters, which you saw earlier, and I was waiting for that art to be done before I continued on, and I'm glad I did because they look great, and I think that'll make for really nice resources as we play through the game. But yeah, so this is what we've got so far, and so when I pick up in the next stream of session 1 officially, we'll be right here with them going back to the Whispering Manor. But yeah, hope you are enjoying this little beginning to the Kingdoms of Myst, and I hope to see you in one of the live streams sometime soon. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.